Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This time I'd like to call this meeting to order. We have a quorum present, and I'd like to go ahead and just get started with the Secretary Treasurer's report from Mr. Vest.
Thank you, sir. We did get our audit. We'll be going over that, but coming up in the next couple of days, Executive Director working with City will be coming up with our upcoming year budget, and the City giving some input on maybe some cost efficiencies that we're looking for if we move forward in the next year. We have lots of exciting projects coming up, and we will be sharing coming into November budget, hopefully be presented to the board for the upcoming year for approval.
Very good.
President.
Any questions on the Secretary Treasurer's report? Okay, seeing none. Go into new business. We will start with the approval of the September 21st, 2020 meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion to approve.
Oh, sorry.
Do I hear a second?
Second. Sorry.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The meeting minutes are approved. The next item is the authorization for the executive director and officers of the board to negotiate and finalize a contract with Shrewsbury and Associates LLC for preparation of construction documents and construction management of the Civic Plaza project. Do we have any questions on that before I hear a motion? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
I second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Next item is the approval of the execution of the amended memorandum of understanding with the Indianapolis Marion County Public Library for the development of a library facility on 56th Street. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. The final item, new business, is the authorization for the executive director and officers of the board to negotiate and finalize a project agreement for the sale of a portion of Parcel J East for the purchase and development of a mixed-use project by Sandy Solutions and Veritas Realty pursuant to the proposal dated August 7th, 2020. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'd like to make sure I have a clear understanding, that we have a clear understanding that this is just a motion to go into negotiations for the executive director and officers to begin the negotiation. It's not the definitive project agreement that we're giving approval to.
That is correct.
All right, then I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. At this point, we'd like to do the executive director report from Ms. Dunstan.
Happy to answer any questions about the approvals or authorizations that were just given. But in general, as quick updates around the fort, the David Weekley Homes third phase of the residents at Lawrence Village have now sold 2 more lots, which takes their count up to 26 out of the 60 in phase 3. So there are still 34 opportunities there. But they are still about a year ahead of schedule on that project. So we're very happy. Cityscape Development, I'm sure you've all seen on Otis Avenue, the apartments that are going up pretty quickly and starting to take shape there. That'll be 261 market rate apartments. They are on track and on time. And really starting to shape Otis Avenue as a main street, kind of how it was defined in the original planning documents for the fort. In line with that, on the south side of Otis Avenue, the Hilton True Hotel just received their plat approval this week. And in addition, I think the prior week or two prior to that, their variances from the city of Indianapolis. So we're working on setting a closing date for that. So that, again, will be a Hilton True, a 98-room hotel on Otis Avenue, just north of the Giacomo's Office Suites building. So again, starting to frame out 4 stories on that side of Otis Avenue. Civic Plaza, between the two, where the farmers market is currently held, is what we just approved with the Shrewsbury document to negotiate basically construction oversight and construction drawings to finalize the construction at Civic Plaza. So we'll be working on that hopefully over this winter and getting shovels in the ground in the spring. Working around all of the different events that are held there and making sure they either have somewhere else to be held temporarily or that we can hit those dates. The Purple Line is still slated, I think, at this point for 2023 for full acceptance on both stops at Post Road and 56th, and then Wheeler Avenue on the edge of Wheeler at the Ivy Tech parking lot. So before the actual station is built there will be utilities to put in all the electric charging stations. So we've been working very closely with Indigo on updating the design so it doesn't look like a giant dumpster enclosure on Wheeler Avenue. So hopefully there's some opportunities for art there that we'll be going after. And as you just heard on what we call Parcel J West, we're working 2 separate agreements for different portions of that property for the Marion the Indianapolis Public Library and Sandi and Veritas proposal that came in August 20th or August 7th, 2020. So hopefully by next meeting we'll have that fully sketched out and have more answers than questions. I'm sorry? I'm sorry?
What are the street boundaries for parcel J?
It would be J East, the one that I'm talking about is 56th, Lee, Nelner, and Otis.
All right. And
The one I wanted to say is we're also still in the process, and by next month, we will have all the final details for the PX call for offers over on the loop. That's it.
thank you very much. And if you
Mr.
could also,
President.
yeah, if you,
Hi, I'm Jennifer Sewell. I'm actually from Cityscape Residential, so a developer on the apartments over in Otis. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I know we've talked a lot lately, but haven't met in person. So nice. For the J parcel, the one that's for sale, what is it? Retail office?
It's a mix of retail and office.
Okay, is there any multi or hotel? I know there's the True Hotel.
No multifamily. And we will have time for just public questions at the end.
we'll do, let's go ahead and do the news from the fort.
Sure.
And then we'll open it up for some public questions.
Not that these are, earth-shattering news, but the chamber is still hosting their drive-ins on Wednesdays over on the Loop from 5 to 8 p.m. on the 8700 block of East Otis Avenue. The Lawrence Township School Corporation is holding a Dia dos Muertos, Day of the Dead celebration on the 24th, 11 to 3 p.m. at Civic Plaza. And the Arts for Lawrence group is doing a really fun self-guided scavenger hunt called Secrets of the Fort on October 24th, 25th, 31st, and November 1st. And tickets are available at Arts for Lawrence. But it's a great way to take a walk around the fort, but at each stop you'll learn a little bit of history and have opportunities to go in and support some of the locally owned restaurants in kind of the historic Mule Barn, historic blacksmith shop, and old barracks building. So might be a fun way to introduce your friends and family to the fort. Also, just further down the road, we are still getting some details of some fun Lawrence Christmas details. If you've seen the construction going on out there right now, there's a temporary ice rink being constructed, and you'll be able to rent skates for that and different things this year. There will also be a pop-up holiday farmers market on December 5th at Civic Plaza. And then this Fort Bend Cultural Campus right behind the theater and Starrett Center, if you want to get ahead of the schedule and mark your calendars, for May 22nd will be the public grand opening for that. I've been told that the cultural campus will basically be done by the end of November, and then in spring they'll bring in all the art and the musical swings. So we'll really see that taking shape here in the next month. Unless exception is made, all board meetings will be held in this room the third Mondays at 5:30. And if you aren't already, please do follow our Fort Bend IN accounts on Facebook and Twitter, where we not only share news of the Reuse Authority, but also all of our partners around the fort. And just one clarification on the public board meeting, a cut and paste error. Obviously, our next public meeting is not tonight. It will be November 16th at 5:30. And if you are going to ask questions, especially with the mask, it would be helpful for the minutes if you could come up to the podium.
Yeah, and at this time, if there are any folks that have any questions, please step forward and sure. I think it's okay if you can probably just, I don't even know if that
just pull it
microphone's
over.
on, but you can kind of pull it toward you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Trace Yates, resident here at Fort Bend. A couple of questions as it relates to the Civic Plaza project, what is the investment for that? Is there a budget amount assigned for that? What's the investment for that?
That's part of actually updating the plans to construction documents, is so we could put that out for bid for a budget. What we're working with right now is a conceptual design and a $200,000 land water conservation grant from the Department of Natural Resources.
Do you have an estimate of cost? Not a hard cost, but an estimate?
Not currently.
Not currently, no.
We'll be phasing that and coming back to the board with some suggestions. We've just been recently asked by the city of Lawrence to incorporate some different design features. So.
And then I think, Aletha, you mentioned this. Is there a timeline associated with that? You mentioned perhaps shovels in the dirt by spring.
That'd be the goal, is to do the design and construction documents over the winter.
Okay, so sometime in 2021?
Yes, the project has to be officially complete by spring of 2022, as according to the grant, but the goal is to get it done in 2021.
Okay.
Obviously, spring's a large chunk of time, so it might be late spring before we get shovels in the ground. But
if you don't mind, another question. As it relates to the Parcel J project, the Sandi Veritas project, are there any public incentives in play to get that deal done?
Not particularly public incentives per se. We've worked with them to get to the point we are now, which is to draft a project development agreement. Part of the understanding is that they would purchase the land. In fact, they've made an offer in excess of the appraised value of that. And then this board will determine if part of that purchase price will go back into the project. And so it's not fully developed yet, and it's as a part of that development agreement. So we'll have more information on that next month as that development agreement gets established.
And would it be Veritas, would the proposed major big brand, fast food brand, would that be a standalone storefront? Or would that be part of the proposed Sandi headquarters?
It would be, so the proposal as it sits currently is that they were trying to break that parcel into 4 different parcels, actually 5. The parcel to the west is now where the library is considering moving there, and we have a MOU that is in place. It's the northwest, or the north-south portion of the western, not fully half, but maybe a third. And then there's 4 sort of quadrants left. And they have current development plans for 2 of those. One is an office complex for Sandi Solutions. The other is a Starbucks. The other 2, they're asking for options for, so part of this project development agreement would be sort of twofold. One, there would be clawbacks for the 2 parcels that they currently have development plans for, to ensure that if they don't get the sort of authorizations they need from the city county council and others, that where I suppose not the city county council per se, it's the DMD and others, then we would retain ownership and control. And then for those other 2 that they don't currently have development plans for, allowing some sort of an option there, but it still maintains control with the Fort Harrison Reuse Authority.
The DMD City County Council is still in play, but it would probably need to circle back to Common Council beforehand, I would think. Local Common Council, I would think, at some point.
no, this would be no different than any other project that we've done. Right now, we have a proposal. The next step would be to negotiate that into a development agreement that outlines any kind of requirements or setbacks or, adhesion to the PUD. Official zoning changes it'll go through our local architectural review. And then they'll take that information and have to determine which modifications they need to seek from Indianapolis. So the goal would be not to relinquish control of that property until they get adequate approvals or have the opportunity to claw it back.
Anticipate any zoning changes,
I mean,
perhaps?
most projects that we do have some. I mean, the hotel, the apartments, we've had setbacks and parking modifications. The PUD was written about 20 years ago. So there's generally some level of modification required.
And then last question, considering the proposed, big brand, fast food brands that's being discussed, has there been any comprehensive analysis or conversation about what the impact that could have on local businesses who are already established and invested here at the Fort? Times are tough in that business sector. We all know now with COVID. My worry is, just as a consumer, and still an advocate for small business, that they're already struggling. This could make it even tougher.
I'm not sure did Browning do any kind of market analysis on their proposal at all yet?
No, not a market
Okay.
analysis.
But what we know from, in general, right, is that more traffic is helpful for all businesses, and it's sort of a rising tide lifts all ships. And I think that's at least my philosophy on those types of storefronts or business opportunities here on the Fort.
I would think in normal times, I would agree, but boy, these are challenging times.
Well, I would think that's all the more reason we need more traffic on the Fort.
I meant for current small businesses.
Sure, I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just on that line, if you're following our social media accounts, one thing we have been using is the hashtag Support the Fort to share information about our 10 locally owned restaurants here at the Fort. So anytime you visit one of those, if you want to take a picture or give a little review on Yelp, if you can include that hashtag, that will enable others to see it. The restaurants are following that hashtag, and then we will also see that so that we can help promote anything that you post.
Do you have any other comments from the public? How about board members? Any additional comments before we adjourn?
No, not tonight. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you, guys.